Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Check out the link below, fool.com/The Smattering, to get access to the 10 best stocks to buy right now. So right out of the gate, let's lead it off here with the stocks that we like, stocks that we would absolutely buy right now. And your pick is one of my favorites, and it's Crowdstrike. Let's talk about Crowdstrike.
So Crowdstrike is a cybersecurity company, and the number one reason it's a stock I would buy right now is that I think if it's not recession proof, it's pretty recession resilient. And what I mean by that is if you think about a company that has a contract with Crowdstrike and they're a customer, and now all of a sudden the economy's not so great and they have to tighten the belt a little bit, the last thing they're going to go cut out of their budget is their cybersecurity. They need to.
Cybersecurity is no longer a discretionary spend.
Right.
Right.
It's table stakes to be a publicly traded company. It's table stakes to be a company. So in my mind, it's one of the last things that's going to go. So we have some slides we're going to show, but while Jason's queuing them up, I'll just really quickly talk about the top line. So they reported their April quarter back in June. They're about to report their next. But the last several quarters of revenue growth, 61%, 63%, 64%, 70%, 70%, 74%. So they've just been crushing it on the top line. And as you see here, their long-term total addressable market has just grown all the time, right? So when they IPO'd in 2019, they estimated it to be 25 billion, and now they're estimating the potential by 2025 to be 126 billion. So
and continue to grow after that. I really want to emphasize that.
Right. So that's the first thing, recession proof and just growing the top line like crazy. So if we go to the next slide here, they have a benchmark of 120% of their dollar-based retention rate. So what that basically means is 120% means existing customers are spending 20% more this year than they did last year. And you can see here,
if I was a CrowdStrike customer and I was paying them $100 last year, this year I'm paying them $120.
Right. So they shoot for 120. They're often above it. They're very rarely below it. Very consistent here. So that's the second reason. The third reason that I think that they're a company that is worth buying right now is, and this is related to that last point, these are the statistics around customers and how many of their different modules that they offer that customers subscribe to. So in the last reported quarter, 71% of customers had 4 or more modules, 59% had 5 or more, 35% had 6 or more, and 19% had 7 or more. And this is growing so rapidly that they're going to stop reporting that 4 or more one, because that's becoming almost everyone. And they've just added this 7 or more category. So as you can see, customers come, they stay, and they buy more. So those are all the reasons I think CrowdStrike is absolutely worth buying right now, and it's why it's at the top of my list. Yeah. What about you, Jason? What's your top pick here?
My top one, right, a company that I would buy, and this is almost always very high on my list of stocks that I would buy at any given time, and that's Brookfield Infrastructure. And so going in a completely different direction in terms of what the business does, right, compared to a cloud-based cybersecurity giant that's taking share and growing and building its business larger. Brookfield Infrastructure is really about irreplaceable assets that make the modern economy work. We're talking steel and concrete, real assets that move water, that move energy, that move telecommunications, that move transportation, so things like ports and toll roads and that sort of thing. So these are really important infrastructure that serve the modern world. Now, the key thing about them is that this is a massive multi-trillion-dollar industry. We're talking trillions of dollars a year globally that gets spent on this. It's low growth, right? Overall, it's not very sexy. It's hidden. Nobody really thinks about it. There's no fancy brand name like CrowdStrike or Apple that's attached to it. But these things are like air. We absolutely have to have them. And for a company like Brookfield Infrastructure, it's so positioned, it's multinational in scope. It's been able to grow for 15 years almost since it went public at a much faster rate than spending on infrastructure, and has been an absolute market-beating investment. So what happens? They make these investments in these infrastructure. You get regulated local monopolies in a lot of cases. Nobody's going to build another natural gas utility in the town, right? It's there. It's in place. Things like toll roads, ports. Once they're there, they're established. They're almost uncompetable, right? So sometimes they deal with regulation, local regulations on pricing and that sort of thing, but they're cash generating machines. We've seen the global middle class is exploding. We're going to add 1 billion people to the world in the next decade or so. Essentially, that entire amount of global population growth is all going to be middle class expansion at the same time. You think about here in the U.S., you think about Europe, aging infrastructure that needs to be modernized, improved, and expanded upon. These guys are the best capital allocators in the space, and you want a great way to generate income and also total returns that can beat the market, and you can sleep well at night. Brookfield Infrastructure is at the top of the list for me.